What if I told you that the next chapter of your life doesn't begin with doing more, but with letting go? It might sound surprising. Most of us have spent a lifetime building, holding on, pushing through. Careers, families, responsibilities. We learned to endure, to save, to show up, no matter what. But after 60, something begins to shift. Quietly, gently, like the soft turning of a page, and maybe for the first time in a long time, you have a moment to ask, what do I want to carry with me from here? And what is finally okay to release? In this video, we're going to explore 10 powerful things that many people over 60 discover are no longer serving them. These aren't rules, they're invitations, gentle nudges toward more peace, more freedom, and more joy. You haven't done anything wrong. In fact, you've done so much right. That's exactly why you've earned the space to live lighter. Let me start with a story. A woman once told me that after her 65th birthday, her daughter gave her a beautiful leather-bound journal. On the first page it said, "Write the life you want now." And she froze. For 30 minutes, she just stared at the paper, pen in hand. Not because she had nothing to say, but because it had been so long since someone asked her what she wanted. Not what was expected, not what was needed. What she truly wanted. That moment stayed with her. And honestly, it stayed with me too. So today, that's what I want to offer you. A space to reflect, to gently lay down the burdens that no longer belong to you. And maybe, just maybe, to pick up something lighter, something more you. Are you ready? Let's begin. Let me ask you something tender. Have you ever opened your bank statement, seen that there's enough, and still felt afraid? You're not alone. For decades, we're taught to save for a rainy day, for retirement, for just in case. And that habit, built on wisdom and responsibility, served you well. It got you here. But sometimes, after 60, that same habit can quietly turn into a cage, one where you have more than enough, but still live like you're preparing for disaster. I once met a gentleman named Harold. He'd worked hard his whole life, never extravagant, always careful. At 70, he had a fully paid-off home, solid retirement funds, no debt. But every time his wife suggested a road trip or a new set of chairs for the porch, Harold would pause and say, "Let's wait. What if something happens?" I gently asked him, "Harold, what if nothing happens? What if this is the moment you've been saving for?" That question softened something in him. Because the truth is, saving isn't about stockpiling for fear. It's about trusting that you've built a foundation strong enough to carry you now. If your basic needs are met, if the lights are on, your pantry is full, your health is cared for, then perhaps it's time to use some of that savings for life, for dinners with friends, for surprises for your grandchildren, for sunsets in places you've always dreamed of seeing. It's not about spending recklessly, it's about spending meaningfully. Because one day, you may find that the richest memories weren't built from what you saved, but from what you chose to share, to experience, to live. So today, if your heart is still clinging to just in case, ask yourself this: what would it feel like to believe in what you've already built? Let's keep going. The next step is about what not to spend on and how to know the difference. Have you ever bought something, not because you loved it, but because you felt like you should? A gift to avoid disappointing someone, an outfit you didn't really want, but thought you were supposed to have, or maybe a monthly subscription you never use, but feel guilty canceling. This kind of spending doesn't come from joy. It comes from guilt. And guilt is a heavy way to carry your wallet. I once sat with a woman named Ellen. She was in her early 70s and had spent thousands over the years buying things she didn't need. Holiday decorations she barely used, kitchen gadgets she never touched, and gifts for family members who never asked. When I gently asked her why, she said, "I just didn't want to seem selfish." But Ellen wasn't selfish. She was generous. She just hadn't given herself permission to spend on herself, on the things that actually filled her heart. When she finally did, you know what she chose? A watercolor painting class at the local community center. It cost far less than all the clutter she had accumulated, but gave her more peace, connection, and happiness than anything else she'd spent money on in years. The lesson is this: spending isn't bad. It's where and why we spend that matters. After 60, your money should reflect your values, not someone else's expectations. Spend on the meals that make you smile, the concert that makes your soul hum, the trip that brings your family together, or the cozy chair that makes your afternoon nap feel like a dream. Let go of spending that comes from pressure or obligation. You don't owe anyone your peace just to appear thoughtful. You deserve to feel joy when you spend, because when you buy with your heart, not your guilt. What you gain is so much more than a receipt. It's a memory, a moment, a quiet yes to the life you truly want. Now that we've looked at the why behind spending, let's talk about the when and how trading your time for money might not serve you the way it once did. For most of your life, working hard was the only way forward. It built your home, raised your kids, put food on the table, and gave you a sense of purpose. And if you're like many people I know, you wore that work ethic like a badge of honor. But now, after 60, something quietly begins to shift. You start to realize it's no longer about doing more. It's about doing what matters. I once met a man named Walter. He was 66, retired for nearly a year, and yet he was busier than ever. Not with work he loved, but with odd jobs, favors, and volunteer tasks that left him more drained than fulfilled. He wasn't saying yes because he wanted to. He said yes because he didn't know how to stop. He was afraid that slowing down meant becoming irrelevant. But here's the truth. Slowing down doesn't mean you're fading away. It means you're making space for rest, for reflection, for the kind of presence that doesn't come when you're always rushing. Letting go of overworking doesn't mean you stop contributing. It means you start contributing with intention. If a task brings you joy, lights up your spirit, or helps someone in a way that fills you too, by all means, do it. But if you're saying yes out of guilt, fear, or habit, maybe it's time to check in with your heart. Because at this stage of life, your most valuable asset isn't your productivity. It's your presence. It's being able to sit quietly with a grandchild and really listen. It's taking that morning walk because your body feels alive when you do. It's saying no to what drains you, so you can say yes to what restores you. You've already proven your worth 1,000 times over. Now is the time to protect your energy, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. So if you're carrying the weight of always needing to do more, I want you to hear this. You don't have to earn your right to rest. You've earned it already. Next, let's explore why waiting for the perfect moment can be the very thing that steals our most precious experiences, and how to stop letting life pass us by. There's a phrase I hear often from people over 60. I'll do it when things settle down. When the kids are okay. When my health gets a little better. When I feel more ready. That's when I'll take that trip. Start that painting. Call that old friend. But here's something I've learned. Someday isn't a real day on the calendar. And sadly, I've seen too many people who never made it to that someday. I once sat with a couple in their early 70s. They'd been dreaming about a cross-country RV trip for years. They had the money. They had the time. But every year, they pushed it off. Next summer, they'd say. Then one winter, he ended up in the ER with a heart scare. Not life-threatening, but enough to wake them up. Within weeks, they were packed and on the road. A postcard came 6 months later from a small town in Montana. "It wasn't perfect," they wrote, "but it was the best thing we ever did." You see, most of the time, what holds us back isn't money or health. It's waiting for permission. Permission to prioritize joy. To say yes to ourselves without needing a reason. So if there's something your heart's been quietly asking for, learning to dance, writing that book, seeing the ocean again, ask yourself, what are you really waiting for? Not everything has to be big. It could be a weekend, a class, a phone call. But every time you say yes to something meaningful, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And you don't have to be fearless. You just have to be ready enough to begin. Now, as we step into the next part, let's look at something that's often taken for granted, but can give you the energy to enjoy it all: your health. When you've spent your whole life caring for others, it's easy to put yourself last. You brush off the back pain. You skip the doctor's appointment. You tell yourself, "I'm just getting older." But here's the truth we often avoid. Aging doesn't mean surrendering your well-being. It means protecting it more than ever. I remember visiting a client in her late 60s. She used to be so vibrant, volunteering, gardening, always the first on the dance floor at family weddings. But over the years, she let her health slide. "I don't want to be a burden," she told me. So she ignored the little things, the fatigue, the balance issues, the shortness of breath going up the stairs. By the time she saw a doctor, it took months to get her strength back. And yet, the recovery started with just one change: a daily walk around her block, then stretching, then a cooking class that helped her eat better. Slowly, she felt like herself again. We forget sometimes, our body isn't just a machine to keep going. It's the home we live in, the one we carry every day. And like any home, it needs maintenance, love, attention. You don't need to join a gym or go on a diet that makes you miserable. Start small. Drink more water. Stretch in the morning. Do a bit of strength work, even sitting in a chair. Talk to your doctor. Ask questions. Listen to your body the way you've listened to everyone else for decades. Because every step you take now adds freedom to your future. The freedom to walk without fear, to travel, to hold your grandchild and not worry about falling. Your health isn't just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. And speaking of freedom, sometimes one of the most freeing choices we can make is to stop caring about something that's weighed us down for too long: what other people think. Let's talk about that next. You've spent your whole life showing up for others, being the dependable one, the kind one, the strong one. And maybe, without even realizing it, you started shaping yourself around what others needed from you, or what they expected. But here's a truth that sets many people free in their 60s and beyond. You don't need anyone's permission to be who you truly are. I once sat with a man in his early 70s. He had always wanted to learn how to play the guitar, not to perform, not to impress anyone, just to sit on his porch and play a tune he loved. But he hesitated for years. "My brother always said it was a waste of time," he confessed, "that I wasn't the musical type." And I asked him gently, "What if your joy doesn't need to make sense to anyone else?" He bought a used guitar that same week. The first time he strummed a full song, he said it felt like he reclaimed a piece of himself that had been waiting for decades. We all have those pieces. After 60, one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself is the freedom to stop performing. You don't need to fit someone else's mold. You don't have to justify your choices. If something brings you peace, joy, or meaning, let that be enough. Wear the bright colors. Say no when you mean it. Take the class, plant the flowers, speak your truth even if your voice shakes. This is your life, your chapter, and the only approval that matters is your own. Because when you stop chasing someone else's version of right, you finally get to live your version of real. And that clarity becomes even more important when we talk about what we allow into our daily lives. So next, let's talk about protecting your peace from all the noise that surrounds us. You wouldn't let someone walk into your living room and dump a bag of trash on the floor. So why let the news, social media, or constant complaining fill your mind with clutter you didn't ask for? One woman I spoke with, she was 68, told me she used to watch the evening news every night for hours. At first, it made her feel informed. But over time, she noticed something else. She was sleeping less, snapping at her grandkids, and feeling anxious even when nothing was wrong. I didn't realize how heavy it was until I stopped, she said. It was like opening a window I didn't know was shut. We talk a lot about keeping our homes clean, dusting, organizing, letting fresh air in. But what about our minds? What about the quiet we need to feel peace again? This isn't about pretending the world is perfect. It's about choosing how much of the noise you let into your most precious space, your own mind. Limit the time you spend watching things that stir fear or anger. Seek out stories that uplift, conversations that nourish, silence that heals. Just like a clean home brings calm, a clear mind makes room for joy, connection, and rest. Because what you take in shapes what you put out, and you deserve to move through your days with more lightness and less weight. And speaking of balance, let's talk about how we hold that, even in uncertain times. Financially, emotionally, practically. I remember a woman I met in her late 60s, Margaret. Every month, she would sit at her kitchen table, bills spread out, calculator in hand, face drawn tight with worry. The truth? She had more than enough. A paid-off house, a modest pension, a bit of savings. But her fear wasn't about running out of money. It was about running out of control. Margaret had grown up in a time when every penny mattered, when the smallest waste could mean going without. And though those times had passed, the fear hadn't. She told me, even when I buy something as small as a new lamp, I feel guilty, like I've done something wrong. And I told her gently what I'd love to tell you now. Money is not meant to haunt you. It's meant to help you. It's not meant to weigh you down. It's meant to lift you up. You see, as we grow older, many of us carry invisible burdens. Not just financial pressure, but the pressure to always make the right decision, to never mess up, to never be a burden to others. But perfection isn't peace. Peace comes when we trust ourselves. When we trust what we've built, what we've saved, what we've prepared for, not just with spreadsheets and interest rates, but with care, with love, with wisdom. It's okay to check your finances, to be smart, to ask questions. But don't let your bank account be the loudest voice in the room. Let your heart speak too. Do you want to take your grandson on a trip? Surprise your neighbor with a small gift? Invest in that garden bench where you sip morning coffee. That's not being reckless. That's living. That's choosing joy. And if the fear of what if still lingers, ask yourself this. What if everything works out? What if the careful planning you've done all these years has already earned you the right to enjoy what you have? Not someday, not eventually, but now. Because in this chapter of life, the value of money isn't measured only in interest earned, but in moments shared, in ease, in comfort, in memories. So take a breath. Let go of financial overwhelm. Your money is not your master. It's your servant. It's here to support you, not to scare you. Use it wisely, yes, but use it freely. You have earned that freedom. Now, speaking of what we've earned, let's talk about something even more precious than money. Time. Shall we? There's something we don't often say out loud, but we all know deep down. Time isn't guaranteed. It's easy to forget that. The calendar keeps flipping. The seasons pass. And we think, next year, someday, later. But what if later never comes? I once sat with a man named George. He was 78, strong in spirit, kind in heart. He told me about a dream he had for years, traveling the coast with his wife in an old camper van. They had talked about it for decades. Always said, when we retire, when the house is paid off, when the grandkids are older. But then, one winter morning, she passed away unexpectedly. And just like that, the dream stayed a dream. He looked at me and said, I thought we had more time. That sentence, it stays with me, and maybe it stays with you too. You see, most of us don't need a reminder of what we want. We carry it in our hearts already, but what we often need is a reminder that now matters, that today matters, that this morning, this breath, is not just routine, it's sacred. So many of us spend our years waiting for the right moment, for everything to line up, for the weather to be better, the bank account to be fuller, the to-do list to be shorter. But what if I told you that the perfect moment is never a date on the calendar? It's a decision to show up for your life as it is, not as it someday might be. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's writing that letter you've been putting off, calling an old friend, watching the sunset without your phone, saying, I love you first. These small choices, they are what life is made of, and they matter more than we think. Because the truth is, every day we are given is a day someone else didn't get. That's not meant to be heavy. It's meant to be holy. Your presence here right now is not an accident. It's a chance. So live today, not to fix everything, not to prove anything, but to feel alive in the only moment we ever really have, this one. And maybe, just maybe, the most courageous thing we can do is stop waiting and start living. Let's wrap this all together now with the one thing I hope you'll carry forward after this video. Ready? Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about making room. And maybe for the first time in a long while, room is exactly what your heart needs. Room to breathe, to rest, to dance a little lighter through the day. When we release the fears, the guilt, the constant pressure to be more, have more, do more, something beautiful happens. We create space, and into that space comes joy. I've seen it over and over again. A woman who finally stops worrying about what others think and finds her laugh again. A man who lets go of working nonstop and starts painting just because it makes him happy. A couple who, after years of maybe next year, book that trip and hold hands by the ocean. Not because their lives were perfect, but because they gave themselves permission to live fully. As they are. The truth is, joy doesn't come crashing in with fireworks. It arrives quietly, in the peace of a slower morning, in the softness of a meaningful conversation, in the moment you finally say, this is enough, I am enough. So, as we close this journey together, I want you to ask yourself, not what more can I do, but what can I let go of to feel lighter? What belief, habit, or burden have I carried for too long? And what would happen if I gently laid it down? Because joy, dear friend, isn't something we chase. It's something we welcome. And when you let go of what no longer serves you, you don't become less. You become free. Now go open the window, let a little sunlight in, and smile. Your life is waiting, and it's never too late to live it with joy.